The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is back in session. It is March 2nd, 2026, and I mean, you already know what's happening. The Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. He was killed in an airstrike by the Israeli Air Force, and the whole Middle East is on fire. The United Arab Emirates is being striked, Qatar is being striked, Bahrain is being hit the most, Saudi Arabia is also getting hit, along with Jordan too, and, of course, Israel. They're all getting hit badly by Iranian ballistic missiles and Shahed drones. The same kind of drone that is being used in the Ukraine war right now, though they rebranded it the Girans. But I think the Russians now actually make those drones in-house now, so they cannot really be described as Iranian drones anymore. But anyway, getting away from that, let's talk about the situation on the front line, shall we? Now, first of all, we're going to talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction. The Russians have apparently captured or recaptured the entirety of the town of Primorske from the armed forces of Ukraine, at least according to a geolocation provided by Creamy Caprice on Telegram. And then going further to the east, we also have reports that the Russians have reestablished complete control over the village of Mali Shishirbaki, along with also Shishirbaki 2. There's like two of them, but I think this is the bigger one. And then going also further east, outside of the town of Gulay-Pulay, after capturing the railroad junction of Zalichny, the Russians continued to push westwards. They took control over Herk and are now advancing across these fields towards the strategic crossroad village of Almanek. Should they be able to do this, the town of Orikhiv or Orikov will be encircled from 1, 2, 3, and 4 sides. And probably this side here too, because if they're able to capture Almanek, then this road here will be good as gone too, because the Russians will be easily able to cut off this road, which means the Ukrainians won't be able to supply Orikhiv. So, yeah, I'm expecting this town here to fall to the Russians probably by maybe summer of 2026. So we're talking about June to July of this year. And then after that, it's pretty much on the way to Zaporizhzhia city. The Ukrainians, though, have been continuing to counterattack in this direction. As you can see, they are trying to clear up the rest of Russian-controlled Dnipropetrovsk region, well, at least on this sector here, but I honestly don't trust all of the reports that are coming out. But also, the Russians have also been geolocated, like having complete control still over the town of Ternovate, though Syriac is not sure if he should paint it just yet. And then also, they have apparently have entered or contesting the village of Rizdyanka right now, and should they take control over this, then Vazdiv Zikva I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciations of these names. I mean, I'm not used to speaking Russian or Ukrainian, that is, but I digress. If they're able to take this, then this is basically encircled, and the Russians should be able to take it with ease. I just can't see the Ukrainians being able to continue on this counterattack for much longer, and also the news that we're getting out of this area is now kind of, well, people are just catching up to the news. So, yeah, I don't honestly know if the Russians or the Ukrainians are really going to keep fighting here for much longer, because Rasputitsa has all but arrived, which pretty much guarantees the death of any large-scale assaults in Ukraine. Like, complete, stoppage of any offensives. Now, in the former Pokrovsk direction, now pretty much the Dobropillyya / Dnipropetrovsk direction, the Russians have started pushing towards the border village of Sergivka. This is exactly on the border with Dnipropetrovsk region, and should they capture Serhivka right here, then yeah, they're going to be able to enter Dnipropetrovsk region pretty much without almost any major issues, and it will also threaten the town of Mazova. And then going a little further to the east, the town of Hrishine or Grishino is also under threat of being completely captured by the Russians, though it is not clear yet who controls like most of it, though we can definitely say for sure that this is all a gray zone. But I do believe within the next 1 to 2 weeks from now, the Russians are going to take control over all of this, which will make any future offensives towards the Dnipropetrovsk region border, along with the city of Dobropillyya here, far more easier. And then also there's reports that the Russians are continuing to advance across these fields here as well, which should also make the battle for Dobropillyya come sooner than expected. So Group Center is working a lot right now. Vilna is also in a gray zone right now, so keep an eye on that, along with Novy Donbass, though I think it's under Russian control. And in addition, going to the Konstantinovka direction here, the village of Stepanovka is still contested, at least according to Suryak, though we can definitely say for sure now that the southern half of the village is under Russian control, with most of Stepanovka that is still left being contested, that is. And then going a little further to the north, the Russians are still contesting for southern Konstantinovka, though it is definitely certain now that the Russians are gaining the upper hand, at least in the northern outskirts. And going a little further to the north, we got something interesting here along the Donbass Canal. The Russians have broken out of Nikhorovka and Lipovka and are so far advancing on the villages of Dibrova and Fedorovka Druha. Should they capture both of these, and the Russians will be able to advance easily towards Raya Alexandrovka. And after that, yeah, I honestly don't know what's going to stop them from reaching the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk urban area right here, which the Ukrainians had defended so hard for the last 12 years, since 2014. And then, moving also a little further up north, the Russians have claimed complete control over the village of Raznikovka, though it is not yet 100% certain if the Russian MOD's claims are true, though at this point I wouldn't doubt if it is true at this point, because they pretty much control most of it. Also, in the Liman direction, the Russians are continuing to advance towards the village of Kryva Luka, and are also trying to clear out the remainder of Ozerne. And then also, the Russians are also continuing to put further pressure on the city of Liman, and have cleared out most of its northern fields that are like outside of the city itself. And then going into the town of Dobryshovo, or Dobryshive, the Russians have now claimed more than half of the town itself from the armed forces of Ukraine. So, with this key road here cut, Liman is now encircled, pretty much, for the most part, from all sides. Well, for the most part I don't know if there's really any major roads here left, or I think this is just a railroad crossing here. So yeah, it's pretty much encircled at this point. So yeah, the armed forces of Ukraine don't really have many ways out of this area other than maybe some unreliable dirt roads that can easily be FPV droned by the group of forces Zapad. And yeah, so there's no way to go for them in the east, in the south, and then there's also no way for them to go in the north or even the west too. So yeah, any AFU units that are still in Liman right now are pretty much for the most part trapped, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start fleeing for the hills quite soon, probably around March or April. So yeah, Liman is cooked. Now, going a little further to the north, not much has really changed in the Kupiansk direction, though we can assume that the Russians have regained the initiative here, especially in the suburbs of Kupiansk City. Literally, we have had no news whatsoever to come out of this front, so it's probably a good sign for Russia. In the Kharkiv direction, or the Kharkov direction, that is, the Russians have restarted their push in the bordering areas, and have captured the village of Krugli. So it's pretty much an indication that the Russians are going to try to take this strip of land here along the border between Russia and Ukraine. And should they be successful at doing this, then they'll be able to have a nice starting point towards Veliki Burluk and Bili Kolodiaz, which in turn should make any future pushes towards the areas that they lost in September 2022 much easier. And then going to the northwest, the Russians have continued pushing in the Sumy region, and there are some credible reports speculating that Alexandria is under Russian control, though Syriac has not painted it in yet. And then also, there are reports, too, that the Russians have also continued advancing outside, not far from the town of Khotin and Mala Korchakovka. So yeah, the Sumy front is stagnant, though I will say that the Russians have pretty much reversed all their major losses that they took in those Ukrainian counteroffensives that were done out of a desperate attempt to kick them out of the region. But now that the Russians are all scattered all over the place within the Sumy region, it has become almost next to impossible now for the AFU to completely boot them out, especially now that they're launching something, too, in the Glukov direction, too. Though, time will tell if the Russians will really do something here or not. Who knows? But as of right now, guys, I gotta basically wrap it up for today because there's not really much to report on. I mean, it's the off-season, but also most of your eyes right now are peeled on what is going on in the Middle East. Seriously, there is no doubt right now that this whole region is definitely on the minds of many, well, as it has been for the last 3 to 4 decades. And yeah, so I'll definitely maybe make some more videos or streams about the current situation right now with Iran. And yeah, so I hope every single one of you has a great night. Stay safe out there and try to not get yourself into too much trouble, okay? And I'll see you all next week. So take care of yourselves and peace out. Bye-bye.